Feels like it. Okay, Bellator 289 preview going down this weekend, December 9th, at the Mohegan Sun Arena in Connecticut. Here we go. Which fights are we talking about? Okay. Yes. The semifinals of the $1 million Bellator Bantamweight World Grand Prix are scheduled for this event, as well as the title bout rematch between Bellator Women's Flyweight World Champion Liz Carmouche against Julianna Velasquez. Let us first talk about the co-main event, part of that Bantamweight World Grand Prix between Magomedov and Patchy Mix. So Magomed Tiger Magomedov out of Moscow, Russia, 30 years old, 19-2 as a pro, coming off of a win against, I believe it was a wild card fight, Enrique Barzola, taking on Patchy Mix, riding a 3-fight win streak over Albert Morales, James Gallagher, and Kyoji Horiguchi. Patchy Mix, 29 years old, out of Angola, New York, 16-1 as a pro. His only losses to Juan Archuleta back in 2020. Mark, why don't you go first? Give us your take on Patchy Mix versus Magomed.
So this is a big card with 3 big fights that has zero buzz because I don't know what the fuck Bellator is doing over there. But like you just said it, Patchy Mix is 16-1. He just beat Kyoji Horiguchi. Magomedov had his rivalry with Jan. He's been great. You got the rematch with Carmouche and Velasquez. Stots and Sabatello feels like it should be a huge deal. I don't know what. I feel like I haven't heard a peep about this event. And it's the semifinals of the tournament. I don't know. I'm not thrilled with whatever Bellator's marketing department is up to over there. But these are 3 good fights, and I love this fight. Magomedov is a small favorite. He's minus 140. Patchy Mix is plus 110. Of course, there are size advantages for Patchy Mix. There always are. He's 4 inches taller, and he will have a 2.5-inch reach advantage. So he's certainly the bigger man. For some reason, as much as I know Patchy Mix is a stud, I have a hard time believing that he is like elite level. Like, I didn't think he beat Kyoji, and he trounced him. So I don't know. Like, the man is 16-1, but for some reason I can't get like fully on board even after the Kyoji fight. And I'm having a hard time picking him over Magomedov here. Like, as big as Mix is, I still tend to think that Magomed is going to have either the wrestling edge or just enough of a wrestling competitiveness that Mix can't work his game successfully. I think Magomed is the better striker as well. I certainly think that. So I don't know how it could go Mix's way if I'm right about those 2 things. Like, of course it could happen. Mix is so long and he appears so big in there in the grappling exchanges, and he can grapple his ass off, so he can always find something. But I'm just going to trust the overall skill level of Magomedov to get this done. I do think it will be close. I could even see it being like a split decision, but I just think Magomedov's wrestling is enough. I think he can scramble enough. He's a great scrambler, and I think he's going to be the one with the more impactful strikes. So I will say 48-47 decision for Magomedov.
Omar, give it to us.
I would kind of have to agree. I would add that Magomedov, I think if Patchy Mix was more of a takedown threat, I would be more inclined potentially to choose him over Magomedov. Magomedov has shown vulnerabilities to the takedown even at the highest level, right? Like Raufeon Stots was able to take him down a couple times. But Mix isn't that guy. And I do think he's going to have moments where there might be some opportunity for submission attempts. But I do think Magomed is going to be skilled enough to be able to stop those and possibly even skilled enough to neutralize a lot of Patchy Mix's weapons on the ground. So I'm going to go with Magomed as well. I'm going to go with 4-1 unanimous decision.
I think this fight really can be a grappler's delight here because both guys are sort of submission threats in a big way. You have Magomedov, out of his 19 wins, almost half of them have come by way of submission. And Mix, of his 16 wins, almost 70% of those have come by way of submission. So I would love to see this fight play out on the ground and see who wins that chess match. And I'm going to take Patchy Mix this time to get it done over the Russian, I'm going to say, submission coming in round number 3.
Like it.
Yes, sir. Grappler's Delight. By the way, neither guy has ever been subbed. Neither guy's ever been finished at all.
Makes sense. What, do they have 3 losses between them?
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about this women's matchup. Liz Carmouche, Julianna Velasquez 2. It is the rematch. So we have title bout rematch before the Bellator Women's Flyweight World Championship. Carmouche, let's not forget, won the title back in April, but it was a TKO victory that was sort of considered controversial by a few, and Velasquez's team appealed the results on the grounds of the refereeing error made by Mike Bellatron, but the appeal, of course, was denied by the Hawaii State Boxing Commission. Appeals like that never get
Rare bear.
through. Omar, give us your take of Carmouche and Velasquez too.
It's a very interesting rematch because if I remember right, and Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, because this was months ago now at this point, but I believe Liz Carmouche wasn't winning that fight up until that point. It was a close fight, but I feel like she was getting edged out by Velasquez up until that point. And
yeah,
then
you could have given her round 1, but she definitely lost rounds 2 and 3, and then 4 is when she pulled it out.
Right. And the stoppage, I remember there being a lot of talk about it being an early stoppage. I feel like most of us did not believe it was necessarily early, especially because there was no real fight back from Velasquez because of the position that she was in. And you would have basically just been saying, just hit me until I go unconscious, which is not always going to be the case. So I understand where Velasquez was coming from, but I just didn't think there was any merit in her saying that finish wasn't legit. Either way, the problems I think still present themselves the very same way as the first fight. Liz Carmouche fights how Liz Carmouche fights. That woman is set in her ways, I think, at this point, and she's good at what she does. She is a very good grappler. She's got heavy hands, but her wrestling and her jiu-jitsu, I think, is where she likes to really lean in her performances. And Velasquez, I think, is similar in that regard. And I think it's really about who you trust down on the ground. And personally, I know how that first fight went, and I'm still going with Julianna Velasquez to win. I think it was her fight to win at that point, and she just got messed up in a bad position, and I don't think she'll end up in again. So I'm going to go with Julianna Velasquez by unanimous decision.
Marcus.
All right. The defending champ, Liz Carmouche, is the dog. She is plus 145. Julianna Velasquez is minus 180. I am tempted to pick Liz Carmouche again. It felt very good to pick her the first time and get the comments of how she can never finish Julianna, and then she did just that. So I always will enjoy that. But, yeah, Liz is a wildly underrated fighter. Like, she is still a top level women's flyweight in the world. She has a hell of a resume. She's beaten Jessica Andrade, Caitlin Chukagian, and I mean, they were a little while ago, but no one's really beating her other than Valentina beat her. So she's a stud. Obviously, she's getting older. But yeah, I agree. She earned this belt. I thought it was a legit stoppage. First fight really was very close. If there wasn't a stoppage there, I think it would have been 2-2 at that point. I did give Liz the first. Julianna had done well in the striking in rounds 2 and 3. Of course, her judo is always a weapon, but I said it before that fight, and I still think it, that Liz Carmouche is just a really tough matchup for that judo game. She's a tough matchup for a lot of people's games. Unless you're like a long striker, which Julianna can be at times, it's kind of hard to make your game work on Liz Carmouche. She's so strong. She's so scrappy. She has a really good base, really good balance. She's hard to control. It's not easy to beat Liz Carmouche in there. And I could see Liz getting Julianna down again the way she did in the last fight. So I really think this is a toss-up. I've gone back and forth thinking about it. I could see myself changing my mind again between now and Friday, but it just kind of feels to my brain like this is something that's going to drag out into a trilogy. So I will say that more of this fight looks more like those rounds 2 and 3, and the striking carries Velasquez to a 48-47 UD.
Yeah, I'm taking Velasquez in this rematch here. I think she's too talented not to get one over Carmouche. and I would love it for it to set up a trilogy. I'm going to say she gets the unanimous decision here. In a competitive fight, though, perfectly setting up for that third fight. So I'm going to say Velasquez wrests the title back from Carmouche. Okay, the main event, Raufeon Stots versus Danny Sabatello, the other matchup in that Bellator Bantamweight World Grand Prix. Raufeon Stots, Supa, the 33-year-old out of Houston, Texas, is 18-1. That one loss came at the hands of one Mr. Merab Dvalishvili in the local circuit in New York at a promotion called Ring of Combat. This was back in 2017. He has been undefeated since. He was undefeated, obviously, up until that point, and has been undefeated since, most recently defeating Juan Archuleta as part of the Grand Prix. Okay, Danny Sabatello, the Italian gangster out of Coconut Creek, Florida. 29 years old. He is 13-1. His only one loss came at the hands of Erwin Rivera, also in a local circuit show called Titan FC, kind of a bigger regional one. Also undefeated since that, most recently defeating Leandro Higo by decision back in June. Omar, give us your take and your pick, quickly, of Sabatello and Stots.
It's a really interesting fight because this is obviously going to be a real test for Sabatello. He's been through the last couple fights, I think, have kind of really set the tone for what we should be expecting from Sabatello, but Raufeon Stots is a tall order, I think, for anybody. The one thing I will say is the lead up to this fight and all the build up and all the stuff that they've been talking, Raufeon Stots really got me sold on the fact that Danny Sabatello is extremely overrated and that Sabatello has just found a way to sell himself in the right way to make it seem like he's better than he really is. And I say that he's selling me on it because the more I think about it, the more I'm having a hard time defending that point, or defending Sabatello from that point, I should say. And it's not that Sabatello's not talented, but his performances leave something to be desired in the terms of a great or somebody on a Raufeon Stots level or somebody at the very, very top in the elite. There is something that just seems like it's missing. A little salt that needs to be added, if you will, some more seasoning to the pot. With all that being said and done, I think Raufeon Stots is he's the plate that's just made just right. And I think he's going to be able to take it home. I think he is more skilled on the ground. I think a lot of the shots that Sabatello is going to go for are not going to work on Raufeon. And I think Raufeon is going to be able to work, send up Sabatello to the ground and from the ground. So I'm going to go with Raufeon Stots. I do think it's going to be competitive. So I will say 48-47 Stots.
Okay, Mark.
All right, Stots is the favorite. He's minus 150. Danny Sabatello is plus 125, so pretty close. Danny's 3 inches taller here, but Stots has a 3-inch reach advantage, so that's interesting. I kind of made this point, but I'll make it again quick. I thought this particular fight was going to have a lot more buzz on it in the MMA world, especially with the way both of these guys are willing to talk shit, and they have been talking shit. Mm-hmm. I feel like Bellator has kind of dropped the ball marketing this thing, but this is a big deal and a big fight. Both men have one loss in their entire career. I know Stots' was a little bit kind of fluky, not fluky, but just like a flash knockout. And if I recall, I kind of think Sabatello's was the same in a fight that he was winning, but don't quote me on that one.
No, it was a body shot that just put him out.
There you go. So yeah, they are both on huge streaks right now. Obviously, one man's momentum is going to come to an end. They've been running through everyone that they've stood across from lately. But yeah, really, what this fight comes down to is: do you think Danny Sabatello can take Raufeon Stots down often enough in at least 3 of these rounds? That's the whole question of this fight, more or less. And we know that he's shown that he's able to do that to anyone thus far, but Raufeon Stots is a hell of a wrestler and a hell of an athlete on top of that. The way he can scramble, he's very hard to control, slippery guy, fast guy, strong guy. He's everything you could want physically in the 135-pound division. And on the feet, I think this thing is all Stots as well. Not like he's some elite level striker, but he's a dangerous striker, and Danny Sabatello is not that. So it's just a matter of, will Stots be able to truly open up on the feet, or will he be too concerned about the takedown that part of his game is taken away a little bit? Like, I guess that wouldn't be shocking, but I just think he can still do enough to win striking exchanges, and I'm sure he'll be on his back a couple times, but I think he can do enough there too. You know, like I said, I could see it go the other way, but Stots defended wrestling really well against Magomedov, like super impressively. Granted, Sabatello's a different style that may be a little tougher for Stots to counter, but I'm going to trust that he can do kind of the same thing and get at least 3 of these rounds. So I will say Raufeon Stots 48-47 UD.
Okay. I like it, and I agree. I think that to echo you, Mark, I like the athleticism of Stots over Sabatello. I think he's going to be way more explosive and a much more dangerous striker. I think that he's going to hand Sabatello his second knockout or TKO loss. I think he's going to get the better of him. He's going to find himself on top. I think he's going to be a club and sub, perhaps. I'm going to take submission victory for Stots. I'm going to say round number 3. Okay.
That'd be fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Very nice.